What is up, everyone, and welcome back to Fordham Firesides. This is my first sequel episode of the entire show. We are doing another top 10 album countdowns. Matt Peters is back. This time we are doing the 2000s. This is my personal favorite decade for music, so this made this list really, really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think a really cool thing about this list, in particular to the last list we've done too, is that you kind of get to revisit a lot of the music that you really enjoyed when you were like younger.
Yeah.
And then see, does it stand up still? Do you still like it? How has your taste changed since you were younger? And yeah, I do think that there's really a lot of cool albums that have come out.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's just like, even as I've gotten older in this decade, I've checked out albums that I never would have in the first place. And when I started, I had like a list of like 50 albums that I'd say I love, and I cut it down. I really only cut it down to like 22 albums. So I have like a dozen honorable mentions. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these. We're just going to rattle them off. Just know that they're all great albums. You should check them out, and then we'll do our top 10. Hopefully this episode ends up being shorter than the last one, because that's my longest one by far.
Yeah.
So why don't I go first this time, just to switch it up?
Yeah, go for it.
So my honorable mentions, we have Jay-Z, The Blueprint, Outkast, Stankonia, MIA, Kala, Daft Punk, Discovery, Coldplay, Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends, Phoenix, Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix, Fleet Foxes by Fleet Foxes, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot by Wilco, Illinois by Sufjan Stevens, The Glow Part 2 by The Microphones, Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antenna to Heaven by Godspeed You Black Emperor. And then the last two are Animal Collective, Merriweather Post Pavilion, and Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights. Those were the two that were really close to making it. Those are both fantastic albums.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, you've had actually a lot of the albums that I've had either on my list right now or in my honorable mentions too. If it's on the honorable mentions, I may just kind of skip through it because you've already heard it. But on my honorable mentions, I got Hot Fuzz by The Killers, A Rush to the Blood of the Head by Coldplay, Is This It by The Strokes, 808s and Heartbreaks by Kanye West, Late Registration by Kanye West, Fleet Foxes by Fleet Foxes, Men on the Moon by Kid Cudi, and the Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of great honorable mentions. I also, there'll be albums on here that could have made in my honorable mentions, but I already had one on the list by the same artist. So, I can talk about that when you get to them, but you might be wondering, where's this album? It's just I just preferred this other one by them, so that I kept that one on there instead. But yeah, why don't we get into number 10? My number 10 is Since I Left You by the Avalanches. This is a electronic album. It is so cool. It might be my favorite electronic album. I mean, I think I said that about the Jamie XX one last time. So they're both really close. But this is an album that's built entirely on samples, kind of like what DJ Shadow did before them in the 90s. So there's no live recordings of guitars in there. They literally just take beats from old records, songs, samples, and even clips from radio shows and old movies and stuff, and they turn it into this really just fun, almost tropical island sounding album. It's 16 tracks long. The thing is fascinating from front to back, just seeing what they do by just clipping sound bites together and making these very complete sounding songs. One of my favorites on there is called Frontier Psychiatrist. It's that one's built around radio show bits and stuff, and it's just a weird song, but it's so cool. I love what they do on this album. There's really nothing out there like it. If you like Kanye, when he samples tracks and soul stuff, I highly recommend checking this out, because it's mostly that, but without rapping.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds very, very Kanye-esque in terms of sampling, so I definitely would want to check that out. For my number 10, I have one of your honorable mentions. I have Stankonia by Outkast. So I think this album is really, really good. I think Andre 3000 tries some different stuff on it, but it really works with songs like So Fresh, So Clean. Miss Jackson is one of their greatest songs. Gasoline Dreams. I think the way the album starts is really, really good.
Yeah.
And I mean, Andre 3000 was actually just on some track. I forget, but I really miss him, man.
He was on the James Blake album.
Yeah, the James Blake. And he sounded great on that, too. I was like, Andre 3000 cannot not sound great.
I know, he's sick.
I was between the two Outkast albums.
Speaker Box.
That one's really good too, but that one is a lot longer, I think.
Yeah, and it's just split. It's essentially two albums, because you have the Big Boy and the Andre album. That one didn't make my list just because I just feel like I haven't listened enough. Like I really like that first half, but I sort of like fall off towards the back half. And it's just maybe I'm like, you know, either losing interest or I just need to like devote more patience to it. But I really do love that album. But yeah, didn't quite make it for me.
Yeah, I mean, Speaker Box is just so long, so I can't blame you. Yeah. And it's like, you can obviously revisit a track like Hey Ya, which is on the latter half. Yeah. But yeah, so that one's going to fill in at my number 10.
Yeah, if we did top 10 songs, Hey Ya would probably be my number one. Maybe 2 or 3, and I could talk about some of those other songs on here. My number 9 is Vicotomus by Grizzly Bear. Grizzly Bear, one of my all-time favorite bands. They're kind of like a psychedelic folk band. And I feel like this is their magnum opus. The entire album sounds like somewhere between Fleet Foxes, Radiohead, and even like maybe Vampire Weekend. But it's such a cool album because they had like a more like straightforward like folky indie rock album before, but they did a lot more with this one. They have like an orchestra going on in there. The vocal harmonies are incredible. It's like a lot of great like pop tracks like 2 Weeks, Ready Able, While You Wait for the Others. Like the songs sound really like slick and cool, but it doesn't lose like the very stripped back like folky vibe that comes with that type of music. And they just do a lot on that album. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really cool listen. And it's also they're one of Jay-Z's favorite bands as well. Yeah, there's a video of like him and like Beyonce like, you know, like really getting into it at a Grizzly Bear concert.
That's awesome. This is a great segue because my number 9 is the Black Album by Jay-Z.
Okay.
So I had to pick between that and the Blueprint, but I feel like I initially liked the Blueprint more, honestly. Yeah. And I like the song Heartless City so much.
Yeah, it's like a great song.
That would be in my, if we had a top 10 songs, that would be my top 10 songs as well. But I feel like just as an album, it's held up better. I guess in terms of like rap nowadays versus rap then too. Songs like Encore are still really good. What More Can I Say is still really good.
I can see that.
Dirt Off My Shoulders.
Yeah.
So I mean a lot of the songs have stayed in my like listening rotation, and that's what I valued a lot with these albums. And yeah, I don't know. I wish I could listen to it more, honestly, because I don't have Tidal.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. I ended up. I think I have the Black Album in my library because I like bought it on iTunes.
Yeah, it's a good purchase.
Yeah, I think I prefer Blueprint more, but I do think you're right that it aged better. Black Album aged better because there's a lot of the stuff on Blueprint that sounds a little dated.
Right.
I mean that's like kind of partly due to some of the stuff that bothers me with Jay-Z because he's always like bragging and talking about how sick he is, and I know a lot of rappers do it, but it's almost like too much with him.
I agree.
But I really like Blueprint just because it's got so many fantastic songs.
It's true.
Song Cry and like, yeah, it's great. My number 8 is Arctic Monkeys. Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. What a fantastic album.
Yeah.
Great like British punk rock Strokes influenced album. It kickstarted their career. It has so much energy from front to back. Great melodies, great guitar licks. Like it's just such a cool album. The only reason it's not higher for me is probably just because it sounds very similar front to back. I think the songwriting, makes it, each track stand out. But it's a very aesthetically similar album all the way through. And I think on their recent albums like AM and Tranquility Base, they did a better job of like mixing it up. I prefer Whatever People over those two, mostly because they've never reached that height with that energy and like aggression to this date. They've never really captured what they did in Whatever People since then, and that album is just iconic and amazing. I love it.
I like AM, so this is an album that's definitely flew on my radar when I was thinking about this list, and I definitely should have listened to it more, like leading up to it, because a lot of the albums that reached my top 10 were like stuff that I've been rediscovering over the past week. Yeah, no, that album is fantastic.
Yeah. It's also really cool that they make songs that sound like very like aggressive punk rock, but also you can like dance to, like in a bar or a club. Like, I bet that You Look Good on the Dance Floor is such a fun song, and it's cool that they kind of like found a way to blur the line between dance and rock in a really fun way. So yeah, that's my number 8.
So for number 8, I have American Idiot by Green Day.
Okay.
So this has some nostalgia value to me, because when I was in like 6th grade or something, I was young, My cousin went on LimeWire and burned me a CD of songs she thought I would like.
Okay.
And then a lot of these songs were on there. So songs like American Idiot,
Yeah.
Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Wake Me Up When September Ends. I had those on like my blue iPod Nano.
Yeah.
So I really like those songs still, even though I'm not really like listening to it too much in like the average day. I still think like they're really, really good songs in general.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I mean, everyone kind of had a Green Day phase at some point in, like, their middle school career.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't know. I think that it really still kind of holds up, even though I don't listen to it too much on rotation anymore.
Yeah, I kind of figured this would be on your list. I wasn't even sure if you like Green Day a lot, but I could see you, like, putting it on there.
Yeah.
I was never really a Green Day fan, but I really like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, and Holidays, like, a cool song. That was just like never the sound that I got into, but I really respect that album because it kind of like captured that concept of like the Jesus of Suburbia was like the character, and it's like, I don't know, reflection of like 2004 era America or something. Yeah, it's a cool album. Solid pick. My number 7 is Mad Villainy by Mad Villain. This is the definitive underground hip hop album. I'm pretty sure it's like widely regarded as the greatest underground hip hop album of all time. I agree. I also think it's one of the greatest rap albums of all time. It's MF Doom and Madlib, who's the producer, and MF Doom's like this London rapper, really deep voice, has this really iconic flow where he kind of does like a 7-beat pause thing. I guess you just have to like listen to it if you haven't to understand what I'm talking about, but like you can instantly recognize his rapping, not just because of his voice, just like from a mile away. And that's so prominent on this album, and it's done over these like incredible sampled beats from Madlib that have this very like 1960s nostalgic like New York City vibe to them.
Yeah, he's from Long Island.
Oh, he's from Long Island. Okay, yeah, makes sense. And the way the songs are like put together, they're all like 2 minutes long max, and they're all very linear. Like you're not going like verse, chorus, verse. It's just he just sort of like flows his way like through a track, and then it ends, and there's like crazy stuff. It's a very unconventional structure for a rap album, or really any rap album period. But it's such a cool album, and it really like evokes like a 1960s like superhero comic like vibe. And he kind of like the MF Doom thing, he kind of like has that superhero like talk in his rapping all the time, but it just really like shows in this music in this album as well. But that's my number 7, Mad Villainy.
Yeah, so can you do an MF Doom album too? Because Mad Villainy and MF Doom, name change or
there's no rules against that. That was just my personal but no, that is unfortunately my only Mad Villainy or MF Doom album on here. Not my only MF Doom feature though on this album.
Yeah, I was picking between that and a different Doom album that I'll get to later.
Okay.
But for number 7, I have the Eminem Show.
Okay.
So, I mean, my Eminem phase came and went when I was in like middle school and high school.
Sure.
But the songs like Without Me, Till I Collapse, Sing for the Moment, Soldier. I mean, this album is filled with like really, really good, like Eminem kind of at his most consistent best, which I think is really good. It's just that unfortunately my taste has kind of shifted away from the Eminem sound lately. So even with his like recent albums like Kamikaze, I think it's still important to note because Eminem really was kind of one of the biggest dudes of the 2000s.
Oh, easily, yeah.
And I mean, everyone was listening to his music, and I remember when these songs were out, and I was like, I went on YouTube.com and I like plugged my headphones into like the school computer and listened to it. But I think that Eminem's flow, he's like wonky and strange and funny. I mean, everyone knows who Eminem is.
Yeah.
So I don't really have to go into too much about him. But I think that this album, I had this one between this and the Marshall Mathers LP, but I feel like this one is a little more consistent with how it kind of delivers the song like quality, in my opinion. I think that with the Marshall Mathers LP, there's some songs that I really just want to skip, whereas with this one, it's more consistent with like hard rap songs versus melodic songs.
Okay.
And overall, I think it's better.
Okay. Yeah, see, I've never really got into him because I'm just like, I find his voice and like sound off-putting and a little dated, which is kind of what you're getting at.
Right.
Like to me, and this will probably like upset a lot of people, but Eminem is just like the early 2000s emo punk rock version of rap. And
totally.
It's dated, but I appreciate what what he's done for music in general. And yeah, it's a good pick. What are we at, 6?
6.
My number 6 is Demon Days by Gorillaz.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
This is the other MF Doom feature I was talking about because he's on one of these songs. briefly, but this album is so cool, and the Gorillaz is such a fascinating concept. It's Damon Albarn, lead singer of Blur, and he started this virtual band where he like created these cartoon characters with Jamie Hewlett, who was the cartoonist who designed it, and it was like these cartoon characters were the band, and then he like produced the music for it. So it was like I think virtual band is like the term they use. And the first album came out, and I think it's really all over the place. Like it's not sure what it wants to be. Sometimes it's like a little cartoony. Sometimes it just sounds like Blur songs. Sometimes they have like cool rap features from Del the Funky Homo Sapien. And that's like cool and all, but like Demon Days is where they really nailed down like a solid concept from front to back. It's a very post-apocalyptic album, and then the songs on there are just awesome. Feel Good Inc.
I was gonna say, isn't Feel Good Inc. on that one?
Feel Good Inc., Dirty Harry, El Mañana, Kids with Guns. Like each of these songs you can like turn on their own and like, you know, enjoy outside the larger album concept, and they're really fun, and it's just awesome. And Feel Good Inc. would be my other pick for the greatest song of the decade. It's so cool. Like they just make like dark pop music that like really works, and I still haven't heard anyone like kind of do something like that since this album. At least on that level, that has like so many influences from, you know, punk rock to hip hop to reggae at some points, and it's awesome. And what was the last thing I was gonna say? I can't remember. Whatever.
I mean, Feel Good Inc.'s an awesome song. Gorillaz, they don't have anyone who quite matches their sound, which is really cool. And I mean, shoot, I also lost what I was gonna say too, but
I remembered what I was gonna say actually. I was just gonna say in their next two albums, I think they like failed to capture the same feeling of like they are actually a virtual band who are making this music. Because on Plastic Beach and most recently Humans, like it just felt like Damon Albarn was like getting his friends together and making music, and it didn't have any aesthetic that really like made those albums stand out. Like Plastic Beach kind of did. It was just a little bit of a step in the wrong direction, I think, and then I think Humans was a big misfire. Yeah,
I didn't really like Humans, which was kind of disappointing. And I do remember what I was gonna say now too, which is I think it's really admirable when a group or a band or someone can release an album that has some sort of cohesive identity. But then also have standalone tracks that can be listened to outside of the overall unit of the album. So I also think that album's really good too.
Yeah.
So for my number 6, I got Daft Punk Discovery.
Okay.
One of your honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very shocked actually when I found out that Daft Punk's first album was in '97, because their sound is so ahead of '97.
That's Homework, right? That was their first one. Yeah.
That it's just ridiculous. And then this one I think is even a step in like the right direction for the band too. Like overall, maybe one of their best complete works that I've heard. I mean, One More Time is a really, really good song.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is like their best song, or one of their best. I don't know. It's
it's really cool.
Yeah, like both of these songs could make my top 10 songs of the thousands list. I mean, they pioneered an electronic sound that no one else was quite doing in the I would think that no one really else is doing right now.
Yeah, I don't really think before Daft Punk like electronic music was dance music as much. Like maybe there's a few exceptions. I don't know when Sandstorm came out.
That's true.
But like they really like paved the way for making EDM music.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't know, I would like to see like a cool comeback from them. But I feel like also the way that music has been progressing, that I mean EDM is still very kind of big, but it's big in a different way. Where I feel like it's bigger in instrumentals instead of
I don't see Daft Punk as really EDM. Like I think they influenced it, but they really kept like their house roots all the way through. That's true. And you saw that in like Random Access Memories. But they haven't done anything since that, and I want to see them release another album.
I agree. Yeah, EDM is probably wrong. They're I mean, it's hard to even put like some sort of genre on them. They're like poppy electronic music.
Yeah.
But, like, with some, I don't know, a lot of different elements from different.
Yeah, it's easy to hear a electronic album or song and be like, that sounds like Daft Punk.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's a testament to their longevity and their creativity. And I like that album quite a bit, but it was my honorable mention. So still pretty great because again I started with 50 albums. My number 5 is an album from my personal favorite band of all time, Spoon. It is Gaga Gaga Ga. Uh, Awful name. Awful name for an album. I don't understand why they named it that. But they'd released multiple albums before this one, and every time they release an album, they stay very true to themselves, but they change up their sound enough to keep things interesting. And they're still doing that today. Like, I haven't heard a Spoon album that's like, oh, this sounds, like they're doing this album again. But Ga 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 is I feel like just the pinnacle of their creativity, where they hit a point where they used their indie rock and punk influences and merged it with maybe some classic rock and some pop and some even like mariachi and reggae vibes, and it works so well. It's not even a long album. It's only like 35 minutes or something like that. It's like 8 or 9 songs, maybe 10. But it's just hit after hit, and it works together so well. Britt Daniels' voice, the lead singer, is very raspy, really iconic. Like it just sounds like awesome, and it goes really well with the music they're making. And the production on this thing is insane. Like, I don't know whose idea it was, but they like in between tracks they have like studio feedback of them like talking and stuff, and they'll loop it and they'll kind of like let it like bleed into their next songs and stuff, and it just makes it seem like one very cohesive project. And it's just it's a really fun indie rock album, one of my favorites of all time. So Ga 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 by Spoon.
Did you mention Spoon on your last list?
No, I didn't. Okay. I mentioned them in honorable mentions, and I the 2 they released, or 3 they released this decade was they're all really good, at least the last 2. But I didn't think they were good enough for my top 10, but I just wanted to give them a shout out. I'm pretty sure I said something like they will dominate this, like my 2000s list if we do it. So
yeah,
I mean, number 5's not bad.
Not bad at all.
If it's more, because again, I'm trying to like keep things like somewhat objective as well, and take in consideration influence and like, popularity and success. But number 5 is a good spot, and I love them. I've seen them like 3 times.
I mean, one of my favorite things with albums is when one song can flow into another song.
Yeah,
and you've seen that a lot with like the Kanye West albums this summer.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Tipsy Ghost and Daytona. So I just really love that kind of sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, for my number 5, I did say a little bit of a psychedelic sound would be coming back. I have Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots.
Oh yeah.
Lips. This album is really, really cool. The Flaming Lips have such a unique sound with psychedelic rock at this time.
Yeah.
And they have some really like kind of big highlight songs, which is like Fight Test, which is their first song on the album.
Yeah.
Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots Part 1, which is like debated to be like a song about a girl with cancer or not.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like she's taking vitamins, she's fighting pink robots.
Yeah.
A lot of people I think there's been no official statement, but like a lot of people think that she's just fighting cancer, not robots.
Okay.
But they Do You Realize?
I know that
really
song.
Good. Yeah. They have like a very, very instrumental sound. They're going like wow.
Yeah.
Like that is in like every song, and the guitar riffs are cool. The melodies are cool. It's very easy to sit back on your bed, put in some headphones, and listen to.
Yeah.
That's what I appreciated, and I think that Yoshimi and Do You Realize are pretty good standalone songs. I mean, Yoshimi is one of my. I only found this album over the summer, and I really, really grew on me super fast.
It's really good. I've only listened to it once, so
yeah,
that's my own fault. But I really like the Soft Bulletin, which is their previous one from the '90s. So maybe that would show up if we end up doing that list.
Yeah. But, '90s had a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I honestly need to listen to more Flaming Lips. But.
Yeah, it's very. A lot of the albums I'm having closer to my top 5 are a lot of easier albums to listen to. Like I enjoy like the psychedelic sound of this album particularly. I think that the riffs are really cool.
Yeah,
so that's why I made it so high.
Yeah, I need to go back and listen to that one more. My number 4 is In Rainbows by Radiohead. They appeared on my last list as well with A Moon-Shaped Pool. This is such a good album. Maybe my favorite Radiohead album. It'd be that or OK Computer, but it's at a point in their career where they could have just stopped or ran out of ideas, because they made OK Computer, which is a legendary album. Everyone loves it, says it's like one of, if not the best album of the 90s. Then they did a complete 180 and released Kid A, which is like a very experimental, like quiet, like electronic-ish album. And then they did Amnesiac, which is like a follow-up to that, and then Hail to the Thief, which is fine. But it was like they were sort of coming down slowly from Kid A, and then they took a 4-year break, dropped their label, and independently released. I think I'm getting that right, but they released like OK Computer, In Rainbows, like digitally, and it was this huge success. So it was not only a testament to like their ability to sell records and as a band, but also to their creativity, because this album is super cool. Like Tom York's vocal melodies have never been like more beautiful or like hard hitting as they have now. They do like really like crazy time signatures and song structures, and it can be very off-putting, but at the same time I think it's their most accessible record, because there's just like so many great songs that you can hear and just right away be like, this is a really cool song. Like 15 Step, Body Snatchers is a banger. I love that song. And Jigsaw Falling Into Place, which is my favorite Radiohead song. And that song does what I think the best Radiohead songs do, which is like start kind of soft and slowly build to like this incredible climax. Right. And it's just a really powerful song. And I also might say that is their most consistent record too, across the board. Like it flows very nicely, because I think at times OK Computer might feel like it's kind of jumping between different, maybe soft rock and then like, harder like 90s rock. But In Rainbows is, it's fantastic, and highly recommend checking that one out if you haven't.
Yeah, when I was doing this list, actually Kid A was on my radar of albums I would potentially be like top 10 or honorable mention, but I totally forgot about that album, so I definitely need to revisit that one, because I was listening to Kid A and it has gotten like so much praise for a 2000s album, but I think that it might not have lived up particularly to the hype or standard I guess I was expecting. So it's good, don't get me wrong.
I think Kid A is mostly gets credit for like what it did and the statement they made, but I just think from like the songs are just like purely better on In Rainbows. But I love Kid A too, and that's what I mentioned towards the beginning. It's not on my list or honorable mentions just because In Rainbows is on here, but those are both fantastic records. I just like In Rainbows more.
I agree, they're both really, really good. So going back to, Mad Villainy, I have MF Doom's Food as my number 4. So, this is a weird album, because there's a lot of different, like, 1-minute tracks of vocal samples or instrumentals that only play for a brief period of time. But there's also songs like Hoe Cakes, Rap Snitches, Conditions, One Beer. Rap Snitches is one of my favorite MF Doom songs, period. So, I really like that song. It's that or It Rhymes Like Dimes. But,
I don't know if I've listened to either of those songs.
Really?
I know One Beer and Hoe Cakes, and that's it. I haven't listened to this album all the way through, but
definitely it's a weird album, because this album, like I said, it does have like the weird interludes that aren't really interludes. But it's just MF Doom. His production on this album is, his production in general has always been insanely good. Like his beats are some of the most creative stuff, especially if you enjoy kind of like a 90s sound with like a 2000s production. I think MF Doom encapsulates, I don't even know that's a word, perfectly though. I think
he's ahead of his time, or he was
for sure, and he has such a different sound right now than the SoundCloud people in general too, where his lyricism is really good, and like how you said with these tracks, Rap Snitches is more has like the sort of like verses, chorus, etc. But with a lot of MF Doom songs, it is like a lot of just like him spitting bars over a beat for a few minutes, and then the next song happens. And he's very innovative with how he kind of assembles a song, which is really cool.
Yeah, I know, he's a fascinating guy. I do need to like listen to more of this stuff. I just kind of like heard Mad Villainy once, and I'm like, I can just listen to this every time I want to hear MF Doom. But I need to listen to Food.
If we were doing a 90s list, I would also throw on probably Operation Doomsday.
Okay, is that 99?
Yeah, it's 99.
Okay, yeah.
But Rap Snitches is especially a very contemporary song with how Tekashi 6ix9ine is in jail now, and Rap Snitches is basically talking about how rappers are telling on themselves in their songs when they flex about guns and gangs and violence and drugs.
That's actually hilarious.
So good pick.
I gotta check that out. My number 3 is The College Dropout by Kanye West.
All right, so that's actually my number 3 too.
So really?
I don't know if we should just talk about it at the same time.
Why not? Yeah, that lined up perfectly. That's the first time we've had that. This is a great album. It's my second favorite Kanye after My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I talked about it before when I did when I talked about Kanye with my friend Tom. So I guess I don't have to go into it that much, but it's groundbreaking. Yeah. It really brought hip hop into like a crossover appeal by, having these like really catchy soul samples, and he's got this like kind of like playful attitude. That sounds kind of weird, but you know what I'm saying.
Actually, Kanye. Actually, like, a lot of people don't realize this, but he brought more of a playful rap to the rap scene. He popularized like a less hardcore and more kind of just like you can rap about whatever.
Yeah, and he's not like trying to prove that he's like a gangster or something like that, which was prominent and it worked in the 90s, and it can still work now. But he just kind of did something different, and it's very like, introspective and smart. And regardless of what you think about Kanye, like he's from just both a production and a lyrical standpoint, he broke new ground, and I think this album's fantastic.
Yeah, it's an insane album, honestly. I mean, songs like Spaceship, where he's talking about working. That's one of my favorite kind of songs in general. So he's rapping about like working his shitty job with his boss getting angry at him.
Yeah, if my manager insults me again, I will be assaulting him.
Yeah, as soon as
love that line.
Songs like Through the Wire are insanely good, and like he's just literally rapping because he got in a car accident.
Yeah.
Songs like Jesus Walks. I mean, it's just, this album is full of like some of Kanye's like best tracks, and also it's like one of the greatest kind of introductory albums or debut albums in general. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I really love about it is how it proved that rap can be catchy to a mainstream audience without having like, like a big pop chorus in the middle. Yeah. And I mean, like Gold Digger's another great example of that, which was on his follow-up album. Right. I mean, like, I guess All Falls Down is maybe an exception to that, but he makes songs that are catchy front to back, not just like rap chorus and then like, yes, we get to the Rihanna feature or something like that.
I mean, even then, All Falls Down is incredibly catchy.
Yeah, I love that song. Yeah, I'm not like talking shit about it. All right, so those are both our number threes.
You can go ahead.
My number two, this is one of your honorable mentions. I can't believe it didn't make your list. The Strokes' Is This It?
It's super good.
I love this album. These my top two here I think are perfect albums, and honestly back to back they might be my two favorite albums of all time. Mm-hmm. I think this album is just a masterpiece in excelling in rock minimalism, because there's not a lot going on this album from front to back. Like, there's 5 members of the bands. They have rhythm guitar, lead guitar, drums, bass, and Julian Casablancas on lead vocals, and that's it. Like, you can hear every instrument. They're very simple rhythms, and everything is so catchy but also so raw, and it just feels like real rock music. And they came along in a time when like rock was kind of turning to like a pop punk phase. Like, it was, I don't know, this is like a cliche thing, but like rock seemed like it might have been dying. Yeah. And I think they saved rock's popularity for at least another decade. And they just ushered in this new wave of New York garage rock music. And The Killers, Arctic Monkeys, Franz Ferdinand, Interpol, Block Party, like so many bands would not exist without the Strokes. Mm-hmm. Just because these guys like kind of took these influences, whether it's like The Cure, Velvet Underground, the Ramones, and took stuff that had been done before but just breathed new life into the genre. And they just released I think it's 10 tracks, and it's not a single track on there is bad. Like, I could turn on any song at any time, and they're just so much fun and cool, and it really evokes the feel of like 2000s era New York City, like in the summer. And it just feels very authentic and true to like what makes rock music great. And I love this album.
I think when I was looking at this album, I thought that it was absolutely the perfect length. And like you said, when I was putting on any song, like the songs would stick. I mean, they do have this very The Killers or Arctic Monkey-esque thing where you could put on a Stroke song at a bar and it would be fine. Yeah, it would. And it's I mean, I'm pretty sure Stroke songs are still played at like a local.
Yeah. And I'm sure like Last Night maybe gets people a little more hyped than like if you put on like Soma or something. But like either way, like you hear the Strokes, I think it's an easy win across the board.
Yeah, Last Night's also one of my favorite songs in general. When I was first doing this list, I think I had that album at number 7.
Okay.
But I just didn't like have enough to talk about when I was creating this list.
Sure.
And I knew that you would have it on your list too. So that's why it hit like number 11 in my legends.
And they also, it's a shame because it was just, they've had a very like steady downhill trajectory from album to album. Room on Fire I think is great. and they kind of go bigger than what they did before on Is This It, but it feels too similar and a little redundant. Still really like it. And then the last three all have their own issues, but mainly most of the tracks on there are just skippable. I don't think any of them are bad, but I also just don't think it's possible for them to capture what they did on Is This It. That it's just like such a milestone in rock music and 2000s music in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. If you've never listened to this album, please go listen to it. It's so good.
I mean, you call it a cliche too, but that is generally how the feeling was too in the 2000s.
Yeah, I know.
Was that rock was like taking, and I mean, if you look at the charts too, it was definitely very pop dominated. Still
Yeah,
is
it was
to this day.
Yeah, and like these days, like we don't have the Strokes anymore. I mean, I guess they're still around, but I think rock music would have slowly like moved to the background if it wasn't for them. But they let it hang on for another 10 years. Yeah, and there's still great rock music coming out today, but it's just not the huge thing that everyone listens to now. Right. But yeah, what's your number two?
So for number two, I have Nujabee's Model Soul. So
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, so Nujabee's is a Japanese producer. He doesn't actually, I think, rap on this entire album. He has other people do it. And he's pretty much like the pioneer of like chill hip hop, or like a very kind of lo-fi before lo-fi was even thought to be a concept. So it's this album has really, really cool highs. It has songs like the ones I would recommend checking out if you've never heard this album is Feather, Reflection Eternal, and Lovesick. So how he does this is like he has a very, very, very unique way he produces his albums. They'll have like a very cool sound. He'll use like a guitar in some of the songs, like Lady Brown, which is on a different album. Feather has a really cool piano chorus, which I like really, really like. And in general, there's nothing quite that sounds like him until like I guess nowadays when all the lo-fi stuff started getting popular. But even then, nothing sounds quite as good as this album. This album is insanely. It's like probably the pinnacle of study music, or like chill in your bed music, or anything. I mean, it's probably my favorite album in terms of background music in general. If I want to just have something on,
I need to check it out.
It's really, really, really good. I definitely recommend it. A lot of the people downstairs, actually, in my apartment, have like heard of Nujabee's or know a few songs of him. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what more to say. It's really hard to describe without checking out. But he has like features from other rappers go on, and they really do a great job of describing kind of. It's more Kanye-esque, where the rap is about anything. Like the song Feather is about drifting through life. And I mean, Lovesick is what you can imagine, but I'm pretty sure Reflection Eternal doesn't even have really lyrics. It kind of has lyrics, but it's more the emphasis is more on the melodies really with these songs, and that's why I think that it's a really cool and innovative album.
What year did it come out?
I think around 03. I don't know. But Nujabee's ended up dying in a car accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's not around anymore.
Oh, that's a shame.
He came out with a few albums, and they actually just got added to Spotify last year.
Yeah.
So I had to go to YouTube to listen to it forever, but now it's on Spotify. So highly recommend that.
Yeah. And we'll link Spotify playlists below this. So
with everything except for the Black Album.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, my number one. You might be able to guess it, maybe.
No. Is it on my honorable mentions?
No, it's not. Okay, so my number one, I think I mentioned on the last list that it was my favorite album of all time, but it's Arcade Fire.
Yeah.
Arcade Fire Funeral is a masterpiece. My favorite album of all time. It's I don't know where do I start. It's 2004. They're a Canadian like conglomerate of musicians from Montreal, and they just made this music that is, I think, definitive indie rock, and maybe not like smaller indie rock, but just like big indie rock. Like how am I gonna describe this? Like Mumford & Sons and all that like ayo like music, and people like that would not exist without Arcade Fire. But their music is just so big. There's so much going on. There's so many instruments, but it's also so stripped back and raw, especially in this album. And that's one thing I think they lost with previous albums. As much as I do love a lot of those albums, their production got slicker and tighter. And but this sounds like it was recorded in a bedroom, but like they had like 50 people in a room with like so many instruments, and every song is just so powerful. They come with these strong like melodies and instrumentals, and every song is completely different. Like you're gonna get a different thing with every song, but it also flows together so well. And what makes, I think, their music most appealing to me is just how stripped back it sounds, and especially Win Butler and Regine, I can't remember her last name, both their vocals. These guys are like not amazing vocalists. They're no Ed Sheeran, but this is like one of my favorite quotes when it comes to music. And it's from David Byrne of the Talking Heads, and he says, "The better you are at singing, the less likely I am to believe you." And I think this is like exactly what they sell in this album, because they're not bad vocalists. Like they hit all their notes and stuff, but it sounds like so raw and honest. So when they like have these like tracks that are just like emotionally powerful, it just hits 10 times harder than like Ed Sheeran singing on, I don't know, one of his albums or something like that, because it just feels like very real, and like everything they're saying like speaks to you, even though if their lyrics are like nonsense, right. Or not that they are, but you know, they don't have like, you know, Kendrick Lamar level introspective lyrics, but just the emotion that they can convey on that album, just like it just works so well. And then there's also like plenty of hits on there too. I mean, they've never had a top 40 single. I actually saw them in last summer, and they were like, it's like, we just sold out we sold out Madison Square Garden, and we haven't even had a top 40 single. This is amazing. And they've won like Grammys too, but I think they just speak to a lot of people. But Wake Up and Rebellion are two songs on that album that are just really big and really powerful, and they're really catchy songs that you can like, that anyone can listen to and enjoy. But I think if you listen to this entire album from front to back, it's just a masterpiece. And there's influences from maybe like Bowie and the Pixies in there. Sure. But they really did their own thing, and I just think it is the most inventive, like hard left turn for rock music in the 2000s. And I think no one else really does what they do the same way.
Yeah, that was kind of the one point I was going to make about Arcade Fire, is that, I mean, the way that they use their instrumentals in a rock type, like I'd never hear anything sort of close to when they're hitting like a climax of a song. Yeah. And then everything's playing at once. It's like a really, really cool moment.
Yeah, they just go hard. And even when you see them live, you can see they're just like so passionate about what they're doing. Like even sometimes they look goofy. You can find one performance of Neighborhood 2. They have 4 Neighborhood songs on the album. Neighborhood 2 is my favorite, probably my favorite Arcade Fire song, period. But there's like a part where like the 2 percussionists are like just like beating each other with drumsticks. Like one's wearing a motorcycle helmet and the other guy's just like going at him and stuff because they're like getting so into it. And it's like a little weird out of context, but you can just tell that these guys like love what they do. And I've seen multiple interviews with the entire band, and they're all like really good, solid people that don't like, this is gonna also sound like really corny and stuff, but they just seem like genuine people. They're like, yeah, drugs don't have a place in like our music and stuff like that. And I'm sure that's like, you know, that's appeals to like the moms out there and stuff, but it's they're just like, they're great and they're real people, and I think they've made the greatest album of all time with Funeral. So
I think that I mean, this is the second time we're talking about Arcade Fire back
to
back.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic album. I definitely need to re-listen to it. I think I really only discovered Arcade Fire like 2 years ago. Actually. Okay. But yeah, no, I definitely am a big fan, and I need to start getting more into that album particularly.
Yeah, especially. And if it sounds like I'm just kind of like rambling when I'm talking about this, just if you can just tell that how much I love this album, that should be enough. So please check it out.
Yep. All right. So for my number 1, I really didn't want to put the same artist on twice. I was trying so hard not to, but I couldn't not put 2 Kanye albums on.
Oh, okay.
So I have Graduation by Kanye West. And I wrote highlights the whole album because honestly, I think that looking at this album, it's just kind of crazy how the songs have aged. I think that in a pop rock sense, songs like, I mean, The Good Life, I Wonder, everything sounds like good still. And it sounds good individually, and it sounds good as a whole. And I think that when you listen to this stuff like Graduation and you listen to the production, I mean, you really kind of see Kanye at his most perfectionist kind of state. Like if you comparing Graduation to something like Ye, even though I liked Ye a lot, I think that Graduation will withstand the test of time as a Kanye album, maybe better than any album he's ever released.
You think so?
Opinion.
That's a high statement.
It's a high praise.
I definitely agree with it to some extent because while I think some of the stuff on that album could sound dated, it also people still love that album today and still listen to it. And it's like one album of like the bling rap era that has stood the test of time. Yeah. And I do think it's incredible. It is one of my favorite Kanye albums.
And I mean, when I look at Graduation too, I think it's kind of really important in the same way how 808s influenced more sadder rap. I think Graduation also influenced a ton of poppy rap sounds. And I mean, especially when I think of a lot of SoundCloud rappers today, I think that they wouldn't be where they are in terms of instrumental production without Kanye West. And songs like, I mean, Good Morning is one of my favorite Kanye songs in general.
Yeah, it's a cool song.
I mean, I'm going to go check my Spotify right now. I'm pretty sure I have every album in my top 3 completely like downloaded, but I just want to make sure I don't like miss something.
It's also an album that like also influenced 808s. Like,
which is crazy. And I had 808s on my honorable mention. I mean, all right, it won't load, but yeah, I mean, the lines on it, Kanye's rapping sounds phenomenal. When he needs to rap, he has good features from people like T-Pain. Yeah. And I mean, I highly recommend just checking it out.
And he also samples like Daft Punk and Steely Dan. It has a feature from Chris Martin of Coldplay. So it just shows like how like aware he is of the entire music industry and not just like, you know, other rap artists and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy actually. Even with the Steely Dan feature, actually Kanye West had me listening to a Steely Dan song. Yeah. He was like, "Did you realize?"
Kid Charlemagne. Yeah. Great song.
Kanye's like his sampling and his production is at like an all-time high on this album. His lyricism is phenomenal. this is basic, whatever. The Good Morning one. Yeah. I'm not gonna rap on this, but yeah. I really like the album, and I think that in terms of influence and if it will stand the test of time, I think that this one might do it.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see a lot of Kanye stuff too, just because he has really reached a point where he is like a cultural phenomenon. I mean, he has years ago, but the fact that he's still being talked about, even if he's pulling like these political stunts, essentially, like he's going to be remembered for a very long time, and a large part of it is due to his music because I think it is simply incredible. So
give us Yandhi, bro.
Yeah, I know. And I want Arcade Fire to make a new album that wasn't pretty bad like the last one. I was very disappointed with that.
The cool thing with, I guess, this list too is that if you look at your top 10 list, most of the people are not in music anymore. Yeah. And I think that everyone on my list besides Kanye is not releasing tracks. Yeah. Daft Punk hasn't released anything.
They've all like slowed down at least. I mean, Radiohead slowed down. Strokes, you know.
They've either gotten a lot worse or slowed down or stopped. It's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, all of the bands and stuff on here are like very anti-prolific artists. Avalanche is my number 10. Like, they released their follow-up album to Since I Left You, which came out in 2000, in 2016. Wow. So Grizzly Bear takes like 4 years. Spoon actually is probably, you know, they're pretty consistent. But Gorillaz, who knows if we'll ever get one again. We did get a follow-up to Humans, the Now. That was all right. But, you know. All right, I think we've talked long enough. Yeah. Matt, your camera ran out of storage, so it only, I think we only lost maybe the last 5 minutes there. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, this is a good list. Everyone check out these albums. We will do Spotify links in the description. You know, comment what you think. Are you mad that I didn't put your favorite album on here? I don't care because it's my list. I'm sorry, that was mean, but I would like to hear what your guys' thoughts are because I do enjoy talking about music if you have not already been able to tell. But Matt, thank you for coming on. This was great. Maybe we'll do a 90s one sometime. I don't know. But everyone, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow the Instagram page. And I'll be back. If you haven't realized, I am doing these every Monday now. That is the schedule I'm going to stick to for the rest of the semester. And also sorry that I have a slight bit of allergies right now because I keep sniffing the entire episode. But all right, bye.